Hey guys, it's Amy. Welcome to Jerry's Live, the at-home edition, which you're at home with Amy in her Crazy Dane studios. So if you've not caught one of the lives with us, I always prepare people. You may hear a sulfur-crusted cockatoo named April giving her art opinion, as always, or Kaloe, one of my dogs that's hanging out in here with me. She may potentially make some noise, but they're here. We're at home. We're all dealing with children and things at home. So today is JL 147. We're getting close to 150, guys. It is exploring alcohol inks. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of different varieties of alcohol inks that we at Jerry's carry. This is kind of the preemptive show that we're getting ready for to carry our own alcohol inks soon. And I think those are coming in this fall, so we'll do a follow-up show after that. Now, there's a lot to go over today, so we may actually do a little catching up this coming Sunday. I'm trying to do some filming for you guys Thursdays, and there's April, and filming on Sundays. So I'm thinking we'll have the inks here anyway, so we may go further on beyond what we get today. So that's what we're doing. So it's exploring alcohol inks. Classic Rock got turned off. That's her problem. So there's always music on. She's very unhappy about that. So, all right, I'm going to turn this around. We're going to go over a couple of or the products and just kind of talk about them as we go. There are some health and safety things with alcohol inks that I just want you guys to be aware of, because I care about all of you, and we never want anybody to have any health concerns from using products. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that in using these you may need some safety equipment, and we'll go from there, and we'll see what we can do about playing with these. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to show you the products, and then I'm going to put this on a clamp above that will help you guys be able to kind of see what I'm working on. So I think I'll hold it until then. So let me flip this around. All right, let's see. Where's my flipper? There we go. All right, so we got it. Okay, so we got everything set up here. I found two really awesome books, and I'm going to give a shout out to these people. Creative Alcohol Inks, Step-by-Step Guide to Achieving Amazing Effects by Ashley Malberg. Lots of pretty pictures, cool stuff in that one. And then this is really awesome, and it's actually a ring binder. Kathy Taylor, Pigments of Your Imagination, Creating with Alcohol Inks. And this is the second edition. So it's got extra stuff. It lays flat, being a kind of book. These are not books that we carry at Jerry's, but I personally did not know that much about alcohol inks because it wasn't something that I'd gotten really my hands on before. So those were books that I found on Amazon that had really good ratings. It looked like they had great pictures. So I really like both of these books a lot. And I'm just scratching the surface with those. So I'm going to stand up here and move these back for just a minute. All right, so let's talk about some of the products that we're going to be going over today. Okay, so we've got different brands of inks. We got 3 different brands. First, let's talk about the Pinata inks. These are the packages. I've got some that I've already got open that we'll use in a little bit. Jacquard has these great exciter packs that have 9 inks in them. Alcohol inks are dye-based, okay, guys? So we'll need to talk about what we can do to kind of help with keeping them as fade-proof as possible for final art. They have 2 sizes, and I'm going to show you my alcohol inks. You can tell these have been used a lot. So they've got the small little half fluid ounce sizes, and then they've got these big 4-ounce size bottles. We used to not carry these separately for the little ones, but now thankfully we do because it's nice. They've got a nozzle on them. It's a lot easier to use. So the exciter packs come with multiple packs of color, and then usually they'll have a white, a black, and some sort of metallic. So this one has a rich gold. So those are gorgeous. Then we've got, I've got some singles of it, and then we've got this really cool little pack that they've got that has a Masterpiece art panel in it. It's a 5x7 art panel, and Masterpiece is a vinyl sided hardcore substrate. So it's basically like a Masonite style panel with vinyl on the sides. So, and we'll talk about that when we talk about substrates with this. You want a slick, non-porous substrate to really showcase the depth and the beauty of the alcohol inks, okay? So this comes with 4 little colors that are pretty nice, pretty colors together: coral, golden yellow, teal, copper. That kind of a nice selection together with these really pretty little alcohol inks in it together. It looks like somebody asked about those books again. Creative Alcohol Inks, A Step-by-Step Guide to Achieving Amazing Effects by Ashley Malberg, and Pigments of Your Imagination, Creating with Alcohol Inks by Kathy Taylor. Now this is something that that you can watch this video at the end of this. Once it loads, you'll be able to go back and catch that again. I saw somebody say something about alcohol inks, and they're not they are dye based, okay? Which dye means that they put that color in, it completely dissolves in the alcohol, and therefore it's that kind of an emulsion rather than pigment, which is a suspension, meaning there's particles in the fluid. No matter what, it's not going to break down any more than the size of the particles, okay? So it's more fluid and it flows better because it is a dye. But just like anything, dyes, especially some, may not be light fast at all, and then some will be more, have a better better light fastness ratings than others. But we're going to talk about what you can do to put fixative on these when we get to that part, to give them a better, longer kind of control on your light fastness, okay? All right, so April apparently has things to say about alcohol inks. So those are the Jacquard's Pinata colors. So I'm going to stick those over there. All right. So then we've got a brand called Marabou. And I've got a bunch of different little Marabou colors over here. Marabou is a German company. The alcohol inks are the same size. They're a little bit. It's not a 0.5 fluid ounce. It's a 0.67 fluid ounce. So slightly larger. And I'm sorry, guys, this will come in and out because we are doing this just with a phone to be able to film at home. So it will be a little bit fuzzy once in a while as the computer's kind of, it's focusing in. Marabou has a bunch of different colors. They've got metallics. They even have some like a rainbow, which I like to call the unicorn color, that has that pretty shimmery kind of color to it. I've got a selection of different ones over here. We don't have any sets from them with these, but we've got a ton of open stock. So we'll kind of play with those in a little bit. The one thing I will say for these that I found in prepping for this, the Ranger ones and the Pinata ones are ready to use. You pop the top off and the nozzle is ready to go. Now, be careful of the metallics because it can get some pigment up in the tip, and when you squeeze it, it will shoot it out if it's clogged a little bit. Then these you actually have to use like a push pin to push in the nozzle, which strangely we had no push pins in the house. So I used a big knitting needle and the top of a button that had a lip so it wouldn't pop off, and pushed them open and then pulled the needle back out with pliers. So just be aware that these you don't snip the tip, because the tip will help keep it sealed later, but it takes a little prep with these. Okay. All right. So then we've got the Ranger inks, which are actually Tim Holtz. A Ranger makes them for Tim Holtz. They are dye-based. Some of them are pigment-based, which any of the metallics and things like that are going to be pigment-based. she's talking to a mockingbird outside now. Sorry about that. So they've got these in open stock, and then they also have these in sets of 3 that the colors look really nice together. Like this one is cranberry lettuce, which is kind of a really pretty green, and eggplant. So those are like nice color selections together. So it takes kind of some of the guesswork out of, a project. You need 3 colors. They have these nice 3-packs, or you can just go to the open stock. They also have metallic mixatives, and they have pearl ones where it's doubles. Okay. So they're this one is rose gold and gunmetal, so you can do the two colors together or the open stock separately, but it's kind of a nice little discount to get multiples. So then they have this cool thing, which I said definitely bears showing. I'm going to show you. This is from Ranger as well. It's a cool container that will hold 30 inks. Notice I've got the Jacquard Pinata in there as well. It will not hold the Marabou. They're too tall. But if it's something where you want to get into the into alcohol inks, and if you've ever had them like this and just had them in a drawer and you didn't seal this really well and something gets knocked over, yeah, imagine. So so this is a great little invention that they've come up with, and I thought it definitely bore telling you guys about. Because that's a great way to keep these. Also to be able to, if you're going to go like to a workshop or, go work with a friend and everybody's going to use alcohol ink, great way to safely carry them well. So that's a really cool little gizmo that'll carry, 30 inks. Then also we've got pipettes that we'll be using. Just with the larger bottles like this, it's the safe way to draw it up out of there without obviously pouring into something, which I've done in the past and it never ends well. And if anybody ever saw me at the Great Dane National, they will know that because I was working on some there. The Ranger Tim Holtz also has these cool little applicators that come in a set of 2. It's felt that has Velcro, so it sticks to this. You can actually squirt some of the alcohol ink on there and apply it. So that's perfect. Somebody said the pH Martin inks, would they fit in there? These are much smaller. The pH Martin inks have a wider base to it, I think. So they're designed specifically for alcohol ink size bottles, which are tiny. So this is a great way of applying it, or even if you put a lot on and then you want to kind of soften edges. They've got packs of 50 of those felts. This little 2-part applicator comes with 2 of these and 10 felts. So that's kind of a nice little thing. Now, let me see where I'm at here. Okay. Copic. Copic is in the middle of redoing their containers for, everybody's heard of Copic markers with their alcohol base. And their refills are alcohol ink. So they're in the middle of redoing their containers for their refills and changing them. So stock everywhere is low in those, and most people are, if not completely out, they don't have very many colors because they're getting ready to get stock to people. But Copic is also something that alcohol artists use, alcohol ink artists will use for their alcohol ink artwork, or the Copic refills, and then you can either put them in smaller bottles or, use the pipettes or whatever to kind of be able to control them with a nozzle. Just we planned this episode long before the stay-home orders were kind of granted. So Creative Mark makes little bottles kind of like these, and some that are bigger in all sorts of different sizes that have nozzles and things for them that would be perfect for if you have Copic refills or the larger Pinata bottles that you can pour into those small bottles with nozzles and be able to have your own custom ink bottles. Or if you want to make custom colors with the inks, whatever. I just don't have any of those bottles here to show you guys because this order was already packed up and done once we got stuck kind of at home here. So anyway, so we've got that. Now let's go to some of the substrates. Now, I talked about kind of at the beginning very briefly that you want a slicker surface for doing this on, because you don't, it can't, I mean, and it's okay, back that train of thought up. You can do it on a more porous substrate, and we'll show a little bit of what that does, but the brilliance of the ink, it's not going to sit on top quite as well. The alcohol will really soak in, so the dye will look a little more dull. It won't have kind of that shine and that kind of, really reflective quality with that. So like the most popular thing for alcohol artists that work on paper is Yupo, because Yupo is a synthetic paper that is super slick. Like this is just watercolor on it. But you can see that this is the heavyweight. So it's a big, thick kind of milk bottle white looking, white color. The colors stand out really well on that. This was just, as I was getting the ink bottles open with the push pin, this was just dribbling a little bit of this on here to see how brilliant this was. You can see it sits right on top. Look at that gold and the kind of one of the pearl colors mixed in. You can really see the shine of the alcohol ink on there. If this was matte, that would soak in. So we will talk that. They make a heavyweight. This is the super heavyweight. The weight is, I'm trying to see, 144 pounds. They make a medium, which is white, and that's 74 pounds. And then they make a translucent, which is 104 pounds. Because you're not saturating this isn't buckling and things like that because it's synthetic. So you can use any of these with the alcohol ink. The translucent is a little more kind of a filmy white. You can see how you can see my kind of the color of my hands through it. So that's really fun for alcohol ink. Okay. All right. So that's one of the kind of main really big surfaces. Da Vinci fluid art panels, these will work for this. However, you're going to need to do one of two things. You're going to either need to be fine with this being kind of a more absorbent gesso for it, or you can take something like a clear coat, like a soft gel or some sort of acrylic that would seal that, a GAC 100. Anything that would seal this off and make it so that the alcohol ink would sit on top would be perfect. So if you like this deeper tray, kind of a lip, especially if you want to, one of the things we'll talk about in a few minutes, when you finish these, you can put resin over it to protect it, and that gives it a lot more protection even than like a UV spray varnish will. This gives you that lip for the resin to go in to dry. So that's why these are super, super popular with this type of panel with alcohol ink artists. If you don't like the absorbency of this gesso, you'll want to seal it first, okay? So that's kind of the beauty of that that panel, okay? Then you can work on regular canvas, like all media art canvas, if you're wanting to do something where, and this will work on any gessoed canvas. The Yes is designed to be absorbent for fluid medium. So if you ever want to do watercolors on either canvas sheets like this, canvas, regular, stretched canvas, this is a great multimedia surface. A slicker gesso might let it sit on top more, but again, if you don't mind that absorbent quality to it, this will work perfect because it holds onto that fluid media nicely. It will sink in. Okay, then people will use things like just sealed tiles, right? You're going to want to tape those edges off so that alcohol ink doesn't go down in those kind of porous sides. But that's what you'll see a lot of alcohol ink work on these because this is slick. It can go across and then you seal it and it'll be really pretty on there. So we do have some of those. If we don't get to these, guys, I promise we will get to them on Sunday. You can use brushes, any sort of brushes. I'm going to use synthetics with it because I don't want the alcohol to damage any natural hair brushes. So you can use that. Spray bottles like these little spritzer bottles are perfect. This has got, I wrote on here so I wouldn't forget and spritz my acrylics with it to keep it wet. This is got alcohol in it, so we can actually use this to spray and make cool techniques, or even if we want to spray this down first on a panel or some Yupo to have a nice wash to then kind of insert our colors in. This is ready to go. You're going to want to use a 91% isopropyl alcohol. Brand is irrelevant if you want to just use this as kind of your thinner to do washes and things like that with. The more of this you use versus the alcohol ink, the more matte your alcohol ink will look because it's got additives in it to make it shinier. But that's what that or a higher percentage of alcohol is what you're going to want to use to work with this stuff. Hold on, I'm turning my notes. Okay, other surfaces that work well that I don't have here that would be nice. They do make vinyl panels like that are kind of a new thing, like the little ones that I was showing you, the piñata sets come with. Clayboard, now clayboard's going to be somewhat absorbent like the liquid art panels, but you can actually put your inks down and then it allows for scratchboarding techniques to do, where you can pull, stuff up to make designs. So that's a really cool surface for that, or smooth gessoed surfaces like the Da Vinci smooth gessoed panels are great. That type of thing where it's got that very, very super smooth, very dense surface. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about working safety real quick here. And I'm going to turn this around just to denote how serious this is because this is serious. And I've got all the windows in my house open because I did not know that this could be as big of an issue. Besides, and if you've ever accidentally, putting an earring in or something like that, cleaned out a cut, dumped some alcohol, that isopropyl smell just can be very overwhelming. So if you're doing these big washes, you want great ventilation. However, you need to wear nitrile gloves just to keep this from absorbing into your skin, and because these are dye-based, so you otherwise you'll just have color on you for a long time. Now, I know any sort of gloves now are not the thing to be able to find because of what's going on right now. So, and like I said, this episode was planned long before we were going to be doing this, but before all this kind of went down. So just be aware that you do need to have some sort of hand protection. I mean, rubber gloves, anything that's going to keep that from soaking into your skin is good. You really, if you're going to use any heat source, and some of these books recommend a heat embossing tool or a heat gun. You can use hair dryers, you can use a drinking straw, whatever. But if you're heating this up, you're making it dry at a very accelerated rate, which is going to make the gases coming off this that much stronger. And there is ethanol in the alcohol inks. So that's not good for you to be breathing. So if you're going to be doing this, where you're going to be especially using heat, you want to have some sort of ventilator on it. We are not going to be using a heat gun today. I do have a hair dryer, and we can just hit it with cool air potentially, but I may even try to refrain from doing that just because I'm in here. I've got, compromised lungs with asthma. April's in here. We don't need to have the canary in the coal mine drop dead today. So that's something that you want to do. And they recommend, one of the books, and I think just common sense recommends the 3M, the masks that have kind of the little respirator things that offer the VOC protection. Again, not the most timely episode to say, hey, this is a good thing to have. But if you're letting this air dry and you've got good ventilation, this is not going to be a problem. It's when you're cranking up a heat gun or things like that to do some very advanced techniques that this is just, that you want to be careful with. Same thing goes for if you're using heat gun with all this around. You want your inks away from the area that you're working on because it could potentially be flammable. Okay, so you don't want spilled ink that's still wet everywhere, and this heat gun turn it up. So so common sense dictates. It's just like if you were using encaustics. You want good ventilation. And you want to follow some safety procedural guidelines, okay? So now that we are past that, I can turn it back around because now I can not have to have that serious talk with you. All right. Again, canned air, the little spritzers that you can use to clean out your like your computer keyboard, those would be fun to kind of push the ink around. Drinking straws, which of course we don't have, and I wasn't going to go out to just pick up drinking straws with everything. An airbrush, if you've got an airbrush and you're not using it for airbrushing, guess what? That blows air. So that might be a really fun tool to use for this as well. So let's go ahead and we'll kind of get this up and get started, and we'll talk as we go about some of the other things that you can kind of incorporate with this. Okay, so let me turn this around. All right, Linda, we do have tripod and phone holders. It's kind of hard to show you all this equipment other than picking up, and I'm going to back out so you can see the type of setup that I've got here. Okay, I've got 4 lights to make this bright enough for you. I've got a monitor so I can see what's going on, and then a mouse. So it's the room isn't quite big enough to be able to have a tripod focused on me, and we can't show multiple views here with this. So, all right. So I'm going to put this here. All right. So let me move this, and we'll just focus on this area while we're working. Okay, so we talked about that isopropyl alcohol, 91%. You can make, some of these have these, they're extenders, okay? Now an extender is just kind of like an alcohol ink medium. Now you can actually make this. If you find, with techniques that you're using, you go through a lot of this type of stuff. There are ways around having to buy this by the bottle, which is a lot more expensive than just going and buying, your just alcohol and making your own. So we've got the 91% isopropyl alcohol. You can take 6 ounces of this and 12 drops of vegetable glycerin, and you mix it well, just shake it up. And what the glycerin does is it slows down the evaporation of the isopropyl alcohol. So it's kind of like if you're a watercolor artist and you know about watercolor medium, it's something that slows down, that keeps those edges from getting too dark. It slows it down so it's more evenly drying. It doesn't dry, from the outside in. It just makes it so that it's an easier thing to use. So that's something that I'm telling you is a little cheap versus, this is the same price probably as the alcohol inks. And you can get a lot more bang for your buck by, now this would be much easier to travel with, but that would give you a whole lot more kind of working room so you can save that cash for your actual inks, because inks are what you want, the color, right? All right, I'm going to put some gloves on here and we're going to work with this. Now you can use, if you've got the like catalyst tools that are like the wedges and the spatulas and like that give you those flat edges, you can use those to push things around. I think I've got, hold on for a minute. It's dusty, but I've got one so I can show you what I'm talking about. It's just kind of that rubber, we've got a couple of them sitting around that you can use to kind of flatten a surface. All the cards are digital anymore for like store, the store cards, like your customer, favorite card, your Vic card, your consumer cards. You can take those and actually use those as well. This has that little bit more room for your hand. It's a little more comfortable. So you can use something like that to kind of smooth some of this out and create techniques. They make some of those with longer handles. You can use, kitchen tools. April. Anything that you don't mind getting alcohol ink dye on will be fine to use for this. Now, again, artist tapes or painter's tape is a good thing to have. Sealant, let's talk about that real quick. Now, the one gal talked about multiple ones, and I happen to have this here, so we can talk about this. The Soluvar is kind of one of our in-house favorites as far as being a mineral spirits based UV protective varnish. You can actually use this on watercolors. You can use this on oils. You can use it on acrylics. So if you're going to do a lot of different types of work, this is a fantastic thing to be able to use for, darn near anything. So that's great. You can spray it using multiple layers. Because this has a UV protectant in it, it will give you some protection from these fading. Also, use your smarts where you hang your work. You don't want it to be in direct sunlight. Also, resin. She talked about resin is a fantastic thing. It adds that extra layer of not only scratch protection, but UV protection. I know that Art Resin is a brand that's free of VOCs and it's food safe. So you could even do it to do, trivets or, things that you might serve like a bread plate or something where you might use for a candy dish or whatever. That would be something that would protect that type of thing. Okay. So again, those books have further ideas from there, but as far as, things that were easy for me to grab, that was perfect. Now on your table, plastic, definitely, and don't make it such a thin mill where you could, scratch it and have it go through. If I had tissue paper or a newspaper, I would probably put some layers on that just so it was soft and kind of sink in to keep it from going anywhere if I had a spill. But I think it's my studio and stuff gets messy anyway. So let's look at some of these different substrates and what I'm talking about, how they're going to sit on it. So we can kind of just show how some of this stuff works. And then if we have time, we'll try to do a little work with it. If not, we'll do some more work like that on Sunday. Let's see, we got some of this just here. I'm going to put some of that isopropyl alcohol in here to use as use for a wash. You can see I got some on there, but I'm just taking this and putting it across the page just to wet it down. Now I can see that it's not evenly wet, but that's all right. We're just wanting this to kind of bloom and grow on it. We'll go with some of the Mirabeau first. I picked some colors that would be kind of, you could apply these with a paintbrush. I'm just kind of gonna dump them on just for the fun of the prettiness of the color. Ooh, that's a lighter ring. Wasn't expecting that. Ooh, I like this. Put together. Now I could take a brush and push these around if I wanted. Just want to get all these colors on here and kind of see what they look like in tandem with each other. And then we'll let it dry and we'll show you a few kind of fun techniques. Those are both the extender. Yes, this is Yupo, and we're doing this is the translucent paper because this is the biggest one I had, so it'd be kind of easier to see. This is extender. I'm going to put some spots in a couple places just to see what happens with some bloom. Now their extender probably will have some glycerin in it. That's the one thing about the difference in that, buying that versus just using regular alcohol for this. Okay, I'm going to take a hair dryer and we're going to dry this a little. I'm going to show you just so we can see kind of what it looks like if we swipe across here. So see, we could take that and we could just make kind of a combined wash. I'm just kind of curious to see what it looks like and how it separates from there. Okay. Put some more alcohol over in another cup just to kind of rinse this out so it doesn't set up in my brush. Okay. I'm not as big on kind of what that did, so I'm going to go back and put some of those colors I liked. Kind of squirting it to make some little tiny. See, that's not so bad now. That kind of in there, what it looks like. The extender kind of pushed some of that apart. Okay, while we're kind of waiting for this to dry, I'm going to get a gold out of one of these Mirabelle. We'll just try some gold on there to kind of see what that looks like, so you can watch it bubble and enjoy that. Because it's magic. Okay, now you could hear the ball in there. That's because if it's got any pigment in it, instead of being dye-based, it's going to have a ball to kind of break that up and make it, because it always wants to settle to the bottom, right? Because it's not an emulsion, it's a suspension, right? Okay. All right. I'm going to put these in to kind of bubble and cook. Don't want to squeeze it too hard. I just want a little bit to shake out. See, that feels like it's gotten a little bit, that's gotten stuck. I'm going to take a paper towel and so that it doesn't blast everywhere. Okay. All right, let's take the hairdryer and dry this really light. Let me make sure it's on air. Cold air, cool air. I'm drying it from high up. I'm sorry, because it's going to be kind of where you guys are going to hear that a lot. But I want this to dry, and then we're going to take that liquid art panel so you can see what the difference is in the sheen. And you can see as this starts drying, that gold really starts coming forward. You can see that gold there. And I'm sorry, guys, this may be blurry, especially with this on next to it, just kind of distorting it. Okay, it's still got a little bit to dry, but we'll kind of leave it like that. All right, so now we could do something kind of fun. Now that this is dry, I've got a very small brush, just a little 4 size bestie. I'm putting this in the alcohol. And I'm getting most of the stuff out. This re-wets itself. Okay, because it just re-wets that alcohol in the dye. So I can actually go back in and pull parts out if I want. You can actually take this and take alcohol and probably take most of that color off. So I could lighten it, make some kind of interesting areas to lighten. Yeah, and again, guys, if you're not used to us doing this here from home, this is just filmed with a phone, so it's not, and there's no other camera person but me. I'm doing this in camera and the whole 9 yards, so it just is what it's going to be with until we get kind of back to normal. See how that's nice? You can get some kind of fun little areas. So this is really viscous, so let's do that so you can really see that green seems to really pop up. So see how you can kind of come back in here and add some kind of negative spaces with the positive. Oh, that area was really thick. You could feel where a lot had been kind of put together. What am I doing in this? We're just showing you how this ink works, really. This is not a specific technique. We're showing you right here how kind of the beauty of alcohol ink is you can push and pull with it. That's why you want to use it on a surface like this. The non-porous surface makes it so you can pull things up and down. Like if I wanted to take this, like with watercolor, how you can lift, I could lift that area that I just put some of that on to make it lighter. In here you've got some of these lighter areas, and then in here it's darker. We've not done anything within here, so let's show you on this so you can really see what I'm talking about, how that lightens it. Okay. Now going back over this with that metallic, then we'll try with a copper just so you can see kind of the difference, since it's a different, it's going to kind of re-wet that because it's got alcohol in it too, right? So this is going to be where this is going to re-wet. That part was wet because I just put in some of that extender or a little bit of alcohol. So you could just put some kind of fun things in there. Then you could go back in with more alcohol, push, pull, right? But you kind of get the gist of it. You could even take stuff like this if you wanted. Lean it and let it drip. Put a little extender on. We're gonna do that and we're gonna let it dry. Let's see, that's purple, so that's really dark. Let's take one of these lighter colors. Arctic blue. I'm guessing that's one of these lighter ones. I'm gonna put some of that in some places up here. Let's see it go through that gold. And that lifts some of the color under it as it moves. Let's see if we can do it. Let's put it on at that angle. Okay. See how it picks up some of the color as it moves? It lifts and edges it, because every time this kind of re-wets with that little bit more alcohol and re-wets with that little bit more alcohol. So let's take some of the actual extender. Put it in some of these areas that are not quite. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is really cool. Look at some of these pretty things that we're getting in here, how kind of ghostly some of this is. So you can take it and do a whole work from top to bottom and then dry it, flip it the other way, make all sorts of lines. That's what would be nice about kind of these little sets of these colors, like that Ranger has, are kind of dummy proof, right? In that they give you colors that look good together, that would work really nice together to make some kind of unique kinds of stuff. Let me see if I can catch any questions. Yes, this doesn't buckle. Even with this being this wet, it is laying flat as a pancake. Not a problem at all. All right. I'm going to lift this up so you can see some of the kind of cool colors that this is made. Look how pretty that is. That was where I think I washed over with the brush. It's lost those colors, but it's kind of ghosted a really soft stuff on the back. Just want you to be able to see kind of those nuances. Now, we could also take this, and once this is dry, or even while it's still wet, we could take our spritz bottle and we'll see what that does. We'll give it a minute. I can see some little kind of bubbling. All right. We'll let that dry. We'll come back and look at that in just a little bit. Let's look at how it works on, since we've seen how, glossy this is and shiny this is. Now the purple's not completely dry yet, but you can still see that's got some nice sheen to it on that translucent paper. Let's see what I'm talking about when I'm telling you guys that it's what the same kind of thing is going to do on this more matte type of surface, okay? So with this, I'm just going to take that alcohol and I'm going to pour it on. So some of it's going to be wet and some of it's not going to be, okay? Because this will start to dry pretty quick. So at least it'll give us some, let's use some of these, the Pinata. Actually, let's use some of the Ranger ones. Wow, that's really vibrant. Woo. These are one of the sets of 3. Now this is, it's like suspending itself in that, ooh, do you see that? This like bump across where it's wet? That's really awesome. They're actually jumping, they're beating and jumping across that alcohol surface. How cool is that? All right, I'm gonna add a little over here because this is really dry in this area. so we can see kind of what the difference is and how it soaks in and shines. That jumping is really cool. Kind of skittering across the top. Again, here's another dry surface right there and over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that there. Now you could tape this off ahead of time so it wouldn't get this on it, but you can also sand it to get that dye off and put a clear coat on it, or paint, or whatever you want to do with it. There's still a pretty good bit of, look at how that orange is really soaking in. It's really pretty. I see Jeff saying something about use a spray Krylon. You can use that. However, it would be good to use something that's got UV. What that looks like in the color, since this is still wet. It's the pinata white. Make sure this gets shaken up enough. And then there's some pearl colors that Ranger has as well. Ooh. Now, the white clearly is a pigment based because it had to shake it up, right? It's not going to be dye based, so it's going to be heavier. So it's going to drop right through that liquid, but it should show behind it, right? Because the dyes will be more kind of translucent. Putting some of these areas that are drying so you can see it's just setting as a regular. See, I don't think this really necessarily needed a clear, slick coat at all. This is kind of a pretty, see, this is why I tell people test stuff, just try it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't like it and you don't use it again, right? All right, purple pearl is probably not going to be that good. How about a blue pearl with this? There's a blue in there. Again, you can hear this picking up, so it's picking up that pearl. We'll put this on, and then we'll use the hairdryer to see if we can't dry some of this. And here you tell you, this is good the windows are open because this is starting to get pretty strong. Okay, so this is pearl. I'm not going to be quite as wild with it. Ooh, look at how shimmery it is in here. Pull that down so you guys can see. It's almost making a green kind of shimmery. See those shimmery colors? Okay. It's fun. All right, let's use a little bit of a hairdryer. All right. Now this may make it kind of foggy again as far as sound, guys. And I'm doing it up from above because I like the where it's at. I don't want to push the color at all. But you could take a hairdryer and you can actually move this around. That's why they use the embossing gun, because watch this blue. I'm going to take it and move it just a little. See how you can see that move? Because it's still wet on there. Saw some of the white kick up there. That's kind of a nice little moment. I just don't want to disturb too much of it higher, so it's just kind of, it's a nice color that made. And you can see the white pigment, the thickness of it, as this is starting to pull away and dry. Now, so that they don't mix as much like this, you would do a layer, you stop. You do a layer, you stop. They'll mix some, but it won't be quite to the extent that this is. I kind of like all the colors together to kind of see what happens. I mean, this has made some nice browns kind of in here with some of those colors together. Curious to see how much that pearl will kind of pop after the fact. Now, people that are talking about cells, this isn't pouring painting. This is actually alcohol ink. So this is going to be different than, you can get some things that come and go, but this is not the same thing. And I can tell that my table is a little uneven because everything's wanting to pull down. Let's see about putting this, there we go. To kind of get some of this color to pull away. I like that color there. You can see it kind of traveling. Okay. I'm going to put in a couple little last peeps of that pearl. Where did I put it? Just in some of these areas that are still a little wet. Ooh, see how pretty that is? It spreads. Yeah, this would be pretty with that. Okay, we're going to do it. We're just going to do it. We're bringing out that Marabou rainbow color. And I don't think it's on the sheet. If you're looking for any of these colors that we're using, or kind of just these products, if you go to the jerry'sdiorama.com website, type in JL147. That's the keyword that will get you the list of the brands and the products that we've kind of shown today. Some of these things, like what I'm just using on this, is just you'll have to go to the Marabou's page on our website. This is called Rainbow, and it looks just like one of the clear, except you can see, it's got that really cool kind of, there we go. All right, I don't want to overdo it with the zingy colors, but that gives you kind of an idea. Now, again, we talked about pipettes. Pipettes are something where you could take these if you wanted. We didn't get a lot of that red. With these, you can't. You'd have to take these off. But with a bigger thing, you could actually draw this up. I'll tell you what. This color wouldn't look the worst with it. Since this is a very large ink, this is one of my old ones, I'm going to just draw it up so you can see what I'm talking about. You know, only put out what you want to at the time. So pipettes can be kind of a nice little tool for some kind of different fun. And this is very far behind. It's just starting to do it on mine because of the delay. It's kind of funny. All right. So that's what it'll do on stuff that's more porous. So you can really see this is duller here. But if you used one of those, the Soluvar gloss varnish, this would really make all that shine, okay? You can see how matte that is there. This is still wet, so you can see the shine. Here's some of those cool little pearl colors and stuff popped in there that you can kind of see. So different, you know? All right, let's try that let's see how we're doing on time first. Okay, we'll just do it real quick. You put these here just to get them out of the way, and we'll use the colors that come with the set, since that's the colors that come with the set. Let's try this little masterpiece thing. Let's do this so it might catch a little better. Ooh, that's noisy. It'll be easier to do this with not a glove on too. Okay. So these are the little vinyl covered sheets. This is a set that comes with 3 of them. 3 little panels, 3 little colors. It'll take a little bit to get that copper going. So again, if you missed this part at the beginning when we talked about these products, this is just, it's like masonite. It doesn't look tempered, it looks like untempered masonite that they have wrapped a vinyl coating on. It's got a really interesting texture, so that this isn't going to absorb into your substrate. It'll just sit on top, kind of like that Yupo did. Let's do this. So if it goes off, we've got something to keep it from getting too squashy. All right. All right. Get my stuff out of my chair. All right, I'm trying to catch questions going by as I can. Okay. All right, so we've got coral, they've got golden yellow, they've got a pretty teal, and then a copper that I still need to kind of get the color done on. Okay, let's do kind of that wash across the top. Where's our big brush go? Okay, so we got our alcohol across the whole thing. Now, if I wanted those sides to not get anything dripping down them, I would need to tape those. See how it kind of separates at first? You can kind of see that with the alcohol itself. Do this and just try to wash over it with some color. Just curious to kind of see how this goes down as it dries. So you can paint with it. There's people that do this and do pretty realistic paintings. It kind of looks spotty because it kind of draws up as it dries. So like you can see that's pulled away from there. It makes these really kind of cool little concave. Putting that in with this to see how those colors mix. Okay. Gonna kind of take this, swirl it back up in here. Where's our copper? Let that kind of migrate into there. Okay, so yeah, that's where that was drier. That's a much thicker thing. It's kind of bubbling and churning and all that. Let's take our hairdryer and move this around just a little. Ooh, too much. And that's low. I need to bump you. While this is starting to dry, I'm going to drop more copper in it and see what happens. You can see it kind of drying up in here. It's almost pulling towards where it's drying at. See how it kind of is glittering underneath? And this almost has a little bit of a texture to it. I can see it as the board's drying. Just a very minute texture, so it probably grabs those colors. Putting a little bit more of that red in there. I feel like it lost some of the strength of it. Okay, we're kind of let that work on its own. We're going to go back to that first one we looked at with the Yupo. See how much shine there still is with this? Lots of really pretty shine. But see how there's these really subtle nuances from underneath where we kind of pulled that brush. This was where we pulled the brush through, and then it kind of dripped down over it, pulled the brush through this area. These are the areas that we didn't pull the brush through, but there's still some kind of nice mixing that they did. There's some spotting from kind of it flicking. Then I did go over it with some just that alcohol spray, and you can see some lighter speckly areas in different spots that weren't there before. Especially in this purple, there's some kind of, see in here, kind of some little speckly areas. That was the last part to dry. That was from that alcohol getting on it and making it dry with some texture. I'm sorry, let's see if I do that, if it is less foggy. I'll put a picture of this in the Jerry's Live group so that they can see it. Just want to see if you guys can see that texture of my fingers on it. Okay. So that was on that Yupo. Let's check the one we did where it was the dryer stuff. You can see there's a lot of texture on that from that white. It's really pushed up some texture. There's some really fun little things. Oh, it's still wet too. You can see that kind of sparkly stuff going down. It's pulled up where the metallics were, where anything with the pigment particles are, because otherwise it's pretty flat because these are dyes and those are pigments, right? So you can kind of see all those fun little areas. You can see where I drew. It's very dry because that was a dry part that I kind of drew on to see what would happen. But you can get a lot of texture and stuff. Now, so this is bright and vibrant, but kind of matte. Think of what would happen if you put resin on that and then it got really shiny and would really glow. It would give it a whole kind of different look to it, right? So, all right, so put that back down. And then we've kind of got this last piece. So you can still see how wet it is up in here. It seems like this, and that's something that I did read about the brands, that's one of the things people like about that Ranger is that it takes a little longer for it to dry. And this was actually, or I'm sorry, this is Piñata. These boards take a little bit longer to dry just because it really, there's nowhere for it to soak in, so it really sits on top longer. And I really diluted it big time, but you can see some of the little sparkles down there under with the gold, and then the gold kind of sitting up on top, and little bits of sparkle here and there. So, and you can see hopefully the texture of it. It's kind of a weird little just enough texture. Okay, so I'll take some before and after pictures after I spray them with the varnish, just so you can see with this one, and then we'll do the matte one in the liquid art panel just to see what difference there is. And I'll post those probably, let's say Saturday. So, and then we can do an alcohol ink lesson on Sunday where we'll do some actual techniques. I saw a couple that would be kind of fun to do with some plastic wrap and stuff where you can really kind of make kind of really cool organic shapes. So anyway, so this is kind of learning a little bit about alcohol ink, seeing kind of how it reacts when you're just kind of pouring it on. This is the playing around stuff that you'd be doing yourself kind of the first time around. So we've saved you a little bit of trouble so you can kind of see what it does. This Thursday, we are going to, on Sunday, Easter Sunday, I had an ink drawing with an accurate pen of a cat that needed to be done white. So, and it was a watercolor. And anybody who does watercolor or has done watercolor or anything like that knows how hard it is to paint something that's supposed to be something white, and have it still read successfully as white while using colors to shade. Okay, because you don't want to just use gray. So, so we did a pretty good portion of that. We're going to come back in Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and finish it up because we had a lot of requests from people that said, you know, I'd love to see how this turns out, but I don't want to miss the in-between. So, so that's what we're going to be doing this Thursday. And then Sunday, we will go on with step 2 with these alcohol inks and try a couple works where we won't talk about the products. We'll just start out into it and start working from there. Okay. Now announcement on the winners. Now, we are going to be doing the same prompt next week as we did this week because we think it's very meritorious and it's something that we should really be celebrating. Just, you know, as people, our first responders, the people that are really on the front lines of this. Think the bus drivers that are still keeping bus routes going to get people to and fro. Think about the police, the doctors, the nurses, the labs that are doing testing, just anything where people are coming together, people sewing masks, anybody making a contribution towards the overall wellness and safety of all of us. those are people to celebrate. And so that's what this last prompt was about last week. We're doing this again for this next week. It ends every Monday night, so you've got one more week to add to it. If you didn't win this time, you can resubmit those. So this is what we've got for our first place winner. Wins a $500 e-gift card, Lisa Summers of Lufkin, Texas. Second place is Arturo Gonzalez from Dallas, Texas. We've got some thankful people in Texas. Arturo, you win a $250 e-gift card from Jerry's. Third place is Trey Powell from South Plainfield, New Jersey. So those are our winners for this week. Same challenge next week, guys. Go ahead and give it a try. I'm going to take this and flip this to close it out. Maybe. There we go. All right. There I am. Sorry about that. Okay, so hopefully you've learned a little bit about alcohol inks. The smell, I don't think was that bad. I mean, you can smell it, but with windows open, it wasn't so bad. So it's fun. It's not, doesn't owe you anything. You don't have to make it look like something. You can just kind of play with color and have some fun. And we'll learn some techniques on Sunday that'll kind of give you some ideas of what you can do. And I'll show you those books again. So on Sunday, but Thursday, the watercolor cat, and Sunday we'll be back to the alcohol inks. Okay, you guys take care of yourselves, be safe, and use this time that you've got for downtime as your up art time. Okay, take care, and next week we will see you. We are doing block printing, one of my favorite things to do.